What's up, you guys? It's Jono! Welcome to another episode of my Pokemon Legends Arceus request series. Today we are on request number 21, Back Alley Mr. Mime. This is another request with our good friend Andra. You'll remember him from request number 14, which was called Very Helpful. You need to have completed that request, as well as quelling the frenzy of the Lord of the Woods, that is Noble Cleavor, and you also have to have Mr. Mime in your Pokedex. All three of those requirements must be met to unlock this request. Now, once you unlock the request and get it off of Professor Laventon's board, then you'll come over here and talk to Andra right by the river. He says thank you for the berries, which is a reference to the previous request that you already did for him, and he tells you all about his newest conundrum, which is a back alley Mr. Mime creeping out everybody in Jubilife Village. We cannot let this stand, so we will have to investigate Mr. Mime. Now, one thing I will say about this particular request is if you don't like Mr. Mime and you don't want to see Mr. Mime next to the front gate of Jubilife Village every time you go there, then do not complete this request, because it will put a Mr. Mime right next to the front gate of Jubilife Village, and some people find it kind of creepy and weird, and they just don't like Mr. Mime in general, and it's not even shiny, so of course it would be worth it to mention, just don't complete this request if you don't want to see that Mr. Mime. Now, for those of you that do want to complete the request, I assume that's why you're here. Let's get down to it. This is a particularly interesting request. There is no other request like this in the game. What we're going to experience here is a series of 3 puzzles, and the puzzles can be completed by solving a labyrinth, a maze if you will. There's only one way to get through the maze, and the walls are invisible, so you do have to do a little bit of weird running around. You'll notice that I didn't go straight towards the Mr. Mime. That's a trick. They want you to go that way. Be smart and go around to the back entrance, and you should be able to get to Mr. Mime pretty quickly. Now, the second Mr. Mime is where we get a real labyrinth, not a labyrinth of real walls like you see in the previous one using the existing buildings in the game. This will be a labyrinth of made-up invisible walls, and it's a little bit hard to get around. So let's go over to the main Galaxy headquarters building, and you'll find your friend Andra right here on the side of the building. Keep in mind you do have to talk to Andra first in order to engage the labyrinth or engage the maze. After you get done talking to Andra, then you can go ahead and fast teleport over to the training grounds. That's the fastest way to complete this request, and I know you want that super fast way to get through this request. Teleport yourself over to the training grounds and go to the back end of the Galaxy HQ building. You need to kind of run off to the left at first, stay away from the shadow of the building on that first area and stay in the sunlight area, and then you should be able to get to the Mr. Mime pretty quickly after that. The main thing is it will let you get really close to Mr. Mime, and there's a bunch of walls in the way, and you do need to back all the way back out if you end up on that path, and try to stay off to the left near the shadow. It's a little bit of a tricky one to get down, so you're just gonna have to play with it a little bit, and hopefully this video is a little bit helpful to get you through. You may want to rewatch that last part just to make sure that you get it. Now, there's only one more maze after this. It's actually a very easy one, but they make it just a little bit tricky, so I'm going to show the footage all the way through just to make sure you can get there as well. Let's go ahead and teleport ourselves to the front gate. This is where we'll find the last Mr. Mime location. Again, you need to make sure you talk to Andra first, otherwise the Mr. Mime won't do his little maze thing. So go and talk to Andra, and then you should see Mr. Mime right over next to the gate, and get used to that position because he'll be very close to that position for the rest of the game after you complete this request. Go ahead and walk towards Mr. Mime, and no, there's no secret entrance on the left, so don't trick yourself like I did. You do have to walk straight towards the Mr. Mime. It's really not that hard to get to Mr. Mime. I didn't have any trouble getting to Mr. Mime on this particular maze, but he does have a few walls around there, so just make sure you run basically right towards him and stay a little bit to the right. Once you get done with that, then Mr. Mime has nowhere left to run, and you're going to complete this request. It's a pretty easy request. It just requires running around, so it shouldn't be too hard for you. Now, once you get done with this request, your reward is going to be 2 Ox Guards. I actually don't use those items, and I don't consider them valuable, but they will help you in battle if you're in a tricky spot and you need to raise your defense for one of your Pokemon. After you finish up this request, you just have a little bit of dialogue with Andra and the gate guard, who is Ress. And of course, they're going to discuss how Mr. Mime is going to stay in that guard position next to the front gate forever. So like I said earlier, get used to seeing that Mr. Mime, because it's going to be a big part of your game, since you do spend a lot of the game going back and forth through the gates of Jubilife Village. Say hi to Mr. Mime along the way, because he'll be right there to greet you every single time. Alright everybody, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it and I hope it was helpful. Thanks to all of my amazing subscribers and peace!